Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's Random Acts of Poetry Day, Tony. You got a poem for us?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, sure do. Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm 2 feet away. Please don't have the flu. So I got a flu shot last Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm not as worried, but what's kept me out of here was COVID. I mean, that's what I'm afraid of, is COVID.
Okay, well,
I keep getting older. It's not good.
Nobody's tested negatively more times than yours truly.
Yeah.
A couple of hundred.
Yeah.
Okay? I got a flu shot, too. You get sick from it?
No, I did not. Should I have?
Right. Then you must...
Welcome to PTI,
Healthy as a
boys and
horse.
girls. Maybe they got the wrong shot in today's episode. The Mets top the Brewers. Devontae Adams wants out, and LeBron says it's unfair to have expectations for the Lakers right now. But we begin today with baseball. Last night's wild card game saw the San Diego Padres beat the Atlanta Braves 4-0 behind the sterling pitching of Michael King. King struck out 12 Braves in 7 innings, allowing only 5 hits. The Braves face elimination tonight. So, Wilbon, what do you think of how the Padres won? I know you love the Padres. And how should the Braves feel with Max Fried on the mound tonight?
Well, it's the second one first. You feel as good as you can feel if you got Max Fried on the mound and your real ace has got back spasms and he's not pitching in Chris Sale. But let's go back to the Padres. Because, it's not that I like them as much. I'm fascinated by the Padres. I think they're worthy of our attention. And the Padres won something that we used to call October baseball. You get a starting pitcher who goes out there and gives you at least 6 innings, and you get some power in there somewhere. A guy we covered when we were young people with hair, Earl Weaver, used to talk about the 3-run homer. Okay, in postseason baseball, maybe it's a 2-run homer. But that's what Fernando Tatis Jr. did. And so you get Michael King with the start.
That's right.
and holding the opponent to nothing, and you get the home run early, and you roll with that to victory. That's October baseball, classic October baseball.
So I think realistically, the Braves had a very slim chance of ever winning that game.
I'll give you that.
They had played a doubleheader the night before, right? They got in by winning the second game, the night game. Then they got on a plane. They flew to San Diego. They landed after midnight Pacific time. So I'm going to assume they were exhausted emotionally and physically, right? And it showed because they struck out 15 times. 15 of the 27 outs are strikeouts. And they don't have Chris Sale, as you mentioned. So it would have been a really big upset if they had won. And they were the only lower seed that did not win game 1. They were the only one. I agree with you on Max Fried. You don't have Spencer Strider. You don't have Chris Sale. And you got a guy who in September had an ERA of 2.14. So I'm perfectly comfortable with him going out on the mound. He gives you a shot. But I wanted to get to the notes that I took today. The Braves, they were looking at game 2 all along. They couldn't have been looking at game 1 because they started a kid who had pitched 1 game in the majors this year. Went 4 1/3 innings. And what month was that? That was May. This was the sacrificial lamb strategy game. They were aiming at 2. They couldn't win 1.
Well, yeah, I mean, now that's commonly known as a bullpen day, where you're going to pitch a variety of people. And like you said, the Braves were coming off this extraordinary circumstance.
Yes.
But again, let's go again. The Padres should not be overlooked here.
I'm not diminishing the Padres.
Who eliminated the Dodgers, a couple of years ago. Yeah. By the way, that would be next up. Another Padres-Dodgers series.
That'd be a great series to watch.
If we get it. But Tony, when you got the people they've got on that team, like Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, this is what they get paid to do.
Just saying that game 1 was a long shot for the Braves.
And they might have had Fried out there in game 2 anyway.
Yeah.
Could be on track. The Mets can eliminate the Brewers tonight. Cheeseheads. Milwaukee led yesterday's game 1 in the 5th at home when its lauded bullpen fell apart, surrendering 5. The Mets were playing on a short turnaround themselves, having clinched a berth in Atlanta only the night before as well. Tony, what did you think about how the Mets won this game?
So interesting to hear you do that lead-in, knowing how much you hate both the Mets and the Brewers. It makes me happy that one team has to win. I thought what the Mets did was fabulous. That was classic small ball. Okay, they get 5 runs in 1 inning. They were down 4-3, and they walked out of that inning up 8-4, 5 runs, all with 2 outs. Okay, they didn't have a 3-run jack.
No, they didn't.
They didn't have a gap triple. They had opposite field ground ball singles.
A lot of them.
Right. One guy dove into first base in order to be safe. So that was, to me, that's a fabulous win. They knocked out 2 relievers in the same inning with 2 outs. I stress with 2 outs. It's a great win for the Mets, and it's a terrible loss for Milwaukee. They have just lost to a team that played twice the day before, had to win one of those two games, and then had to get on a flight and go somewhere. And that's not as far as where Atlanta went to San Diego, but you still had to travel, and you had to travel at night.
2 hour
right?
plus
And
flight.
this is the persistent pattern in the playoffs for Milwaukee. They were 0-2 in 2020. They were 0-2 in 2023. I believe they have lost 9 of their last 10 playoff games. Is it a bad circumstance?
Sort of like the Orioles, who have lost 9 consecutive postseason games. Tony, but you mentioned I went to the classic October form of baseball, and yes, they didn't have the big jack.
Ground ball singles.
But they had Severino giving up not nothing, 6 innings, and they gave up 3 earned. But those 3 earned, he needed to chew up innings.
He did.
Because his team had played all those innings, as you said the day before. They couldn't go to the bullpen. Needed to have the opposite of a bullpen day. They needed to have an old-fashioned situation where the starter chewed up some innings, stayed out there. I think he threw 105 pitches, 6 innings. Again, 3 earned. Pretty good performance.
Have you paid any attention to the Mets lately? I don't think you have.
The last half of the season, they had like the best record in baseball.
Here.
Last 80 games.
They scored 5 runs in 1 inning last night. They scored 6 runs in 1 inning the night before. Here's a statistic that is mind-boggling. They have gone 5 or more in 1 inning 6 times in the last 19 games.
Pretty clutch.
Whoa, they're closing.
Pretty clutch.
They're closing. The football news of the day is the Raiders reported willingness to trade wide receiver Davante Adams, who went to the Raiders 3 seasons ago to specifically play with his college teammate Derek Carr. But then the Raiders released Carr 2 seasons ago, so Adams probably sees no reason to stay. Wilbon, which team would Adams do the most for?
Tony, there's a bunch of teams you can make the case for. And on this network, everybody starts with the Jets, of course, because he's would be going back to play with his quarterback,
That's right,
Rodgers.
That's right.
And you can make the case, you can go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, make it for the Steelers, who have in Kenny Pickens a good receiver, but they certainly could use another one for Justin Fields. You can go, there's like a third of the teams in the 32-team league you can make a case for. I'm only going to make a case for one, the Baltimore Ravens. Okay? Because if the Baltimore Ravens, who've done this before, they did this with Anquan Bolden in 2011, and they won a Super Bowl. They went out and got a 30 or 31-year-old Anquan Bolden. This is what they've done. They went out and got a 32-year-old, I believe, Shannon Sharp, previously, and won a Super Bowl then. That franchise knows how to identify a receiver. They go out and get him. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry,
I'm
and Davante, you put them together, I'm making them the favorite, if healthy, to beat Kansas City.
So let me just say this, that if you take Davante Adams at any one of 8 to 10 contending teams, you have a Pro Bowler being dropped in your lap, and you are suddenly ahead of a bunch of those teams.
Yep.
He had great seasons with the Jets. These numbers, with Aaron Rodgers, by the way, 669 catches, 21 yards, 73 touchdowns. That's tremendous productivity. Did I mention Aaron Rodgers? Because I think he's still in the league. I think it's possible he's with the Jets. And everybody would say that would be a good fit on this network or any network. But the Jets are terrible. And not only are the Jets terrible, they are terrible right now. And it appears that Aaron Rodgers and the coach don't particularly like each other. Now, maybe Davante Adams becomes a fountain of youth for Aaron Rodgers, but if you're asking me to pick a team for much the same reasons that you're picking Baltimore, I'm going to pick Kansas City. They just lost.
You can't trade him to your blood rival.
Well,
you can't do it.
You're asking me who would he be best with.
All right.
They lose Rice, okay? And the first 3 games, not the 4th game, the first 3 games, Travis Kelce has no production
we don't even
at all.
know where he is.
So Davante Adams makes everybody on the Chiefs better, including the quarterback, because he gives them another option. If not there, I'll go local. What about in Washington?
Would help them
What
too.
about Jaden Daniels? Would you want to play with that kid? Would you want to play opposite Terry McLaurin? I'll give you one other one. What about Buffalo? So people stop talking about Stephon Diggs. Again, Davante Adams.
He makes a difference. He's a difference maker. But if you put him with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
Agree. But I can give you 5 teams that if you put them there, they're the favorites. Baltimore. Let's take a break. Coming up, is college football about to slant even more towards the Big Ten and the SEC?
Sounds like it. LeBron says it's unfair to put any expectations on his Lakers at this point. Is he right?
By the way, you had the Steelers receiver as Kenny Pickens. It's George Pickens.
George Pickens.
Kenny Pickett was their quarterback choice.
George Pickens.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yes.
The magic in my ear. magic in my ear.
Baltimore, the better of the two teams in the DMV right now.
Pardon the Interruption is presented by. Welcome back to Pardon the Interruption, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, part of Happy Hour.
It is time to be word nerds. What's first?
Next week's meeting between the SEC and the Big Ten sounds blank.
My word is conspiratorial, okay? Because these two are now partners. They have something called the Big Ten SEC Joint Advisory Group. And do you know what that means? That means that the Big 12 and the ACC can go pound sand. Mm-hmm. They don't want anything to do with them.
Nothing.
At the moment, Mike, of the top 10 teams in the polls, the SEC and the Big Ten have 9 of them. The only outlier is Miami. They want to get together now, and they want to make their strength of schedule such that they get all the at-large bids to the college
like 11
playoff.
out of 12.
But that's now, Mike.
Total.
I think what they're really aiming for is to unite and have a 40-team conference. I think they have like 34 teams right now, maybe 36. They have a lot of teams right now. So you add Miami, you add Clemson, you get Notre Dame, and then suddenly you present a national championship on your own, and this network and all networks will throw billions of dollars at you.
Yeah, and because of everything you just said, my word is monopolistic. And they're trying to have a monopoly.
That's right.
I happen to be a person who's involved with one of those schools, so I have a seat at the table. And it still bothers me, to be honest with you.
Unless they throw you out because you're too academic and they want a football squad in there.
Well, they need some academics, don't they?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they do.
I don't know. Not with NIL.
When that's the only school with $1 billion stadium going up, they probably need that too, because it's the only one even in that big, vast monopoly. But you're right. The real word is gangsta. That's what it is, because they're saying to the other conferences, whatever's left, get out of here.
Get out.
We don't need you.
We don't want to share money with you.
We're not going to share money.
No.
Tony, do you realize how much more money a Big Ten school gets in the payout than, say, an ACC school? Mm-hmm. It's tens of millions of dollars a year. No. So when you have the Big Ten...
That's why the Pac-12 folded, because they couldn't come up with any money.
And that's why Stanford and Cal are stupid to stay in the ACC. Why would you even bother? But this is an attempted monopoly. There's no doubt about it.
What's next?
It's blank for LeBron to say it's unfair to put any expectations on his Lakers team right now.
Pay attention to my word. My word is insane. What is he talking about? Seriously, what is LeBron talking about here?
Tell you.
It's unfair to have expectations on the Lakers? Really? The Lakers in LeBron James may be the best basketball player in the world, because in Paris, he was the best basketball player in the world.
Again.
They have Anthony Davis, who showed very well in Paris as well. Yeah. They have LeBron's son, Bronny, who everyone is wondering about and wonders what is going on here. They have J.J. Redick coaching. He's never blown a whistle in his life. Okay, they are star-studded, and they are star-studded in the capital of star-studdom, Los Angeles. And you say it's unfair to have any expectations? I'm sorry, that's clinically insane. Expectations are the lifeblood of sports. So to LeBron, I say, stop, okay? Stop.
Much of that is true. It doesn't matter, because what LeBron says is realistic. Okay, despite the stars, let me tell you the teams that will absolutely for certain. We can go to ESPN Bet if you want. And these are the teams that are going to finish ahead of the Lakers in the regular season. Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix, Denver, and I think New Orleans. And if you're not careful, the Houston Rockets and the Wembanyamas, assisted by Chris Paul, they're coming up on the outside. Right. All right?
Right.
So the Lakers, Tony, they've added
That's
Connect.
That's a lot.
So here's the deal. LeBron James and Anthony Davis, as great as they are, they played 90% of the games for the Lakers last year. Healthy enough to play, once again, 90%. Where they finished?
And finished 8th or 9th.
They were in the play-in.
Yeah.
All right, so they're going to play in 90% again? You got to play in 90% again back-to-back years?
You can't take expectations off LeBron James after all this time. That's what
realistic.
I'm saying. You can't do that.
It's true.
Is there some statistic like in the last 7 to 8 years they've never finished better than 7th in the West?
It's not.
Is there something like that in the regular season?
You got them higher ahead of any of those teams I just mentioned? No.
I don't think it matters till the playoffs at all.
Right.
But I'm just saying, for LeBron to put a stop sign out there is, again,
Caution
insane.
sign. It was yellow.
That's the final word. Let's take one last break. Still to come, Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner go head-to-head in Beijing.
And the two-time defending champion Aces, they're on the ropes.
You got that wrong.
I did. And I should have gotten it right because they should have won the game. They blew the game.
Now, they were ahead in that game.
Yeah, but just by a point late. And then it was tied, and they missed free throws, and they threw the ball away. They didn't execute down the stretch.
You still think they'll win?
Two-time defending champs.
You still think they'll win?
Yeah.
Oh, they'll win 3 in a row.
They're going home. They're going home for the next 2. Best 3 of 5. Just saying.
Chunky.
Pardon the Interruption is presented by the refreshing taste of Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Happy time, people. Happy 70th birthday tomorrow, Dennis Eckersley. Eckersley was a fine starting pitcher for years with Cleveland, the Red Sox, and your Cubs, Wilbon.
Yes.
He started 359 games for those teams. He had a 151 and 128 record. He made 2 All-Star games as a starter. And then at age 32, Eckersley found himself on the Oakland A's, managed by Tony La Russa. And his life and his career changed. La Russa made Eckersley his late-inning reliever, almost exclusively, right? And the role became known as the closer. Eckersley finished 33 games in 1987 that first year with 16 saves. The next year, Eckersley finished 53 games with 45 saves.
Amazing.
And now everybody has a closer. And the line stretches back to Eckersley and La Russa, both of whom are in the Hall of Fame.
La Russa was a visionary, wasn't he?
He invented a position.
He really was. He was
100 years after the game started.
He did. He saw this, and to see Dennis Eckersley in that role, it's amazing. It's one of those things you'd like to go back and talk to Tony about now and say, listen, what did you see and when did you see it and why? This was so radical.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. And Eckersley, it transformed his career.
It transformed baseball.
It transformed baseball.
It transformed baseball. In its way, it's like the three-point shot in basketball. The game changes after that. Happy anniversary, Don Shula. This is posthumous, but on this day 30 years ago, the legendary Dolphins coach defeated the Cincinnati Bengals, coached by Don's son David, in the first ever meeting between father and son NFL head coaches. Now, several times NFL coaches have employed their sons on staff. Bum Phillips had Wade Phillips in Houston. Buddy Ryan had Rob and Rex in Arizona. Bill Belichick had a son Steven in New England. Mike Shanahan had Kyle Shanahan in Washington. The Shanahans are the first father and son duo to each lead a team to the Super Bowl, and famously the Harbaugh brothers, Jim and John, coached against each other in the Super Bowl with John winning.
You know, at the end or toward the end, late in his career, I was covering the NFL, and I got a chance to be in the company of Don Shula, and it was entirely intimidating. And he didn't go for that. He wasn't trying to do it. Don Shula just had this presence that was lordly. And being around Don Shula and Coach Eddie Robinson, those are the coaches to me, Tone, that when I was around them as a young guy in this business, it was like, oh my God, I'm having a conversation with guys on the Mount Rushmore of this sport.
Don Shula's son Mike was the head coach at Alabama for a while,
Yes,
wasn't he?
He was, a minute.
Right?
A minute. Don Shula doesn't get enough credit for all that he did in the NFL.
Happy trails to last night's games for the Sun and Aces. The Minnesota Lynx bounced back to beat the Connecticut Sun in last night's Game 2 to even that series at a game apiece. In New York, the Liberty edged the Aces to go up 2-0. No WNBA team has ever come back from an 0-2 hole in a best-of-5. After the game, Aces coach Becky Hammond said, and I'm quoting here, "This is why three-peating is hard. Let's be real. The whole league has been pissed off for the last 8 months, and my players are in commercials and this and that, amid being freaking celebrities, and you get distracted," unquote. What a great quote.
It's a great rant, Tony. If you go back to the Lynx first, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, Kayla McBride had a balanced effort to lead Minnesota. And the Aces, I mean, Becky Hammond had reason to be frosty. I mean, they sort of gave that game away. They had opportunities they did not execute properly, including an inbounds play late in the game, missed free throws, porous defense. I still think, and by the way, never having done it means 0 for 18 in that situation.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Down 2 games,
Can I ask you a couple of questions here? Yeah. Didn't the New York team finish miles ahead of the Las Vegas team this year?
Okay, but
didn't Las Vegas have a significantly lesser year this year than last year?
Here's what the New York team has never done. Won the damn championship. They've never done it.
But some of the people on that team have won it elsewhere.
They have won. But the Aces are 2-time defending champions.
Right.
Becky Hammond is challenging her team publicly.
Sure.
All right.
Now, how far you got them? You got them winning it, or you win them 3 in a row?
I certainly think this is going to Game 5.
Do you have them winning Game 5?
I'll stay with them. I picked them. I'm not going to jump off now. They're two-time defending champions with the
I
MVP
understand
for a reason.
And I understand that.
Okay.
And if they lose, can we laugh at you?
Now you going with New
They
York?
lose. I'm
What a
going
shot.
I-95.
Going
baby.
I-95.
Let's
all
go
the
to the
way.
big finish
Let's
if we
do
could.
it.
Carlos Alcaraz beat Yannick Sinner for the Beijing Open title. You impressed?
Apparently the match was epic. But this should be like golf. It's silly season. Stop until, the Australian Open in January. Orange Bloods reports that Quinn Ewers is likely to return for Texas against Oklahoma. Is that significant?
I didn't know what Orange Bloods was. Is it significant? Arch Manning's been very good, but Quinn Ewers is better.
And
that's a big game.
It is.
That's a big
need
game.
both of
It's
them.
not this week, it's next week. Michael Jordan's race team filed an antitrust suit against NASCAR and the France family, calling them, quote, monopolistic bullies, unquote. Your thoughts?
I've been following this a little bit. And a lot of people, I'm certainly with Michael Jordan in this. And if people dive deep into it, they can see why. Steve Kerr says only Steph Curry has locked down a starting job for this year's Dubs. Does that surprise you?
This is Steve Kerr. Did you see what he did in the Olympics? Do you think he knows what he's doing? Does he have enough rings for you? Last one, the 49ers signed Terrell Owens' son, Tariq, to their practice squad. Your reaction?
The practice squad means you got to earn your way up. Good for him. I hope he makes it.
Turn to the right camera, Tony. We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knucklehead. You can get the podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. And now, your sports center.
I want the Aces to get as far as you want them to, but I don't know that I want them to win Game 5.
Drama.
I am.
You want the drama, though, right?
Yeah, I like the drama.
All right, here we go.
Wilbon, what team would you like to see Devontae Adams traded to?
Tony, I don't have a horse in this race. My team, the Bears, has plenty of receivers. We got that. Yeah. Devontae Adams is still a potentially great receiver. We haven't seen it in a little bit because he's with the Raiders and it hasn't mattered. But I'd like to see, as long as we're having a wish list here, I'd like to see him with the Ravens. Because if we're looking for somebody to rival the Chiefs, I'd like to see him in a lineup in an offensive setting with Derrick Henry and with Lamar Jackson. And you put him on that team in that circumstance, and if you told me all three of those guys are healthy going into the playoffs, I'll take Baltimore over Kansas City. I will. And I know that he could go to Kansas City, except if I'm the Raiders, Kansas City doesn't even need to call me. I'm dealing with Baltimore, not Kansas City, my blood rival. So that's my wish list.
I totally understand why people look at this and assume that the best fit would be with the Jets. Because when he was with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers was throwing to him, just some numbers here, in 8 seasons, 669 catches, 8,121 yards, 73 touchdowns.
That's a ton. That's a
73
career.
touchdowns.
Whole
It's
career.
incredibly productive, and he was a 5-time Pro Bowler. But, and there's always a but in the story, Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem to get along with the coach there, doesn't seem to be happy. They had no offense at all the other week. They didn't score a touchdown. Maybe he presents to Aaron Rodgers the fountain of youth, and maybe that works. But you say you wouldn't trade him. They wouldn't trade him to Kansas City.
Not doing it.
But if you ask me what is the best fit for him, I would tell you Kansas City. They need a wide receiver.
They need him.
Rice is out. Travis Kelce, not in Game 4, but in Games 1, 2, and 3, had virtually no production. And they win games by 3 to 5 points. And maybe if they have a great wide receiver, everybody gets better, including Patrick Mahomes. And then they win games by 10 points. And we're not saying here every single week, well, they just barely won. And other than that, I'll go local, and I'll say it would be fun to see him in Washington. It would be fun with this kid, Jaden Daniels, and fun across from Terry McLaurin.
By the way, Baltimore, just to go back for a second as a footnote. Now, I think in 2011, whenever Baltimore won its most recent Super Bowl, they did this with Anquan Bolden. Went out and got a 30-plus-year-old receiver, put him in that lineup, and it worked. And before that, the first Ravens Super Bowl, back in the Ray Lewis days, you know what they did? They got a guy named Shannon Sharp. Yeah. And in his first season, 30-plus years old, they put him in that lineup, and they won then, too. So the Ravens have some history with doing this.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but it's not an automatic. Didn't the Patriots get Randy Moss?
They did.
And Randy Moss was Randy Moss. They didn't win?
They didn't win.
Baltimore
won.
That's my point.
Just saying. That's it. We're done. Back to you.